Hi and welcome to the Great Debaters Contest. I'm your host, George Kariuki. Thank you for joining us. Now, Africa has registered growth and development over the past decade, but there's plenty of discussion around how this growth impacts on communities and the people. Today, we look at one of the issues that comes into focus. Our motion reads, industrialization in Africa does not benefit the rural poor. Let's get straight to the debate.
The motion this week is, industrialization in Africa does not benefit the rural poor. Proposing the motion, STAREHE Girls Center. Opposing the motion, Precious Blood High School. Each contestant has 3 minutes to make their submissions. The audience also gets a chance to put their questions to each team. Each side will have an additional 1 minute to make a final statement. The judge's decision is final. But in a twist, the audience also gets to have their say through the popular vote. This will see an extra 5% added to the school that wins this vote. The winning school will get an ICT chill-out zone with a widescreen TV, computers, webcam, and internet connection. The teacher from the winning school gets 100,000 shillings courtesy of Chase Bank. The winning students each get a laptop and modem courtesy of Safaricom, a gift hamper from Hako, and a gift hamper from mimi.co.ke. And together they all win the title, The Great Debaters. May the best school win!
Now, proposal number 1, I'll ask you to take the stage, Miss Audrey. You have 3 minutes to argue your motion.
Thank you all. I'm Audrey Sharola from STAREHE Girls Center, proposing the motion, industrialization in Africa does not benefit the rural poor. First, industrialization is the development of industries in a region. It could be a country or a continent. And the rural poor, these are the people who live in the remote regions in a country. Industrialization does not benefit the rural poor. This is because you find that the factors that affect the development of an industry in an area, such as transport and communication, these are majorly found in the urban centers. And so the people in the rural areas are not able to benefit from these. The roads in the rural areas, in most rural areas, are not good, especially during the rainy season. We all saw in the news that during the rainy season, it was very hard to get to some regions. In Mandera, it could take you 3 or 4 days to get to that place. Why? Because they do not have good roads. And so they do not benefit. The goods that are produced in the industries do not get to the rural areas because of the pathetic conditions of the roads. We also have the social amenities. They are not available in the rural areas. We have the financial institutions, the banks. They are not available in the rural areas. And so they are not able to get the financial help they need. They're not able to get the loans because the financial institutions are not there. And so they do not benefit from any of these. Furthermore, the profits that are gained from the industrialization, they're majorly gained by the rich in the society. And this is because most of them are the investors or they're the ones who hold shares in these industries. And so you find that the rural poor do not benefit. All they can get is the pollution from the industries that are released in the rivers. They use this water from the rivers directly. They do not have any way to purify the water. They get adverse effects from using the polluted water. Yet those who live in these other regions, in the urban centers, they benefit from the products produced in the industries. What do the rural poor get? The pollution. They do not benefit at all. Then we also have skilled labor. The people with the skilled labor majorly are in the urban centers. You find most people leave the rural areas to come to the urban areas where there are industries, because most industries are consolidated in the urban areas. The very, very few are found in the rural areas. And if you find an industry in the rural areas, most of them most of the industries in the rural areas do not follow the rules that they are meant to follow. There was this.
Proposal number 1, you have 3 minutes to argue your motion.
famous scientist once said, "Give me a pivot and I will move the world." Today, Precious Blood, we want to oppose the motion that industrialization does not benefit the rural poor. You see, what the rural poor need, and what should happen and can happen is we need to get industrialization, and this industrialization does benefit the rural poor. And when the industrialization reaches those remote areas that she talked of, is when we shall be able to move our country to the right direction. So I urge you all to join hands with me to oppose this motion, because we know the benefits of industrialization. We know what it means at the grassroots level, and we know how it impacts the nation.
Opposer number 2, you have 3 minutes to argue your motion.
Thank you very much. My name is Winnie Atieno from STAREHE Girls. First of all, I'd like to say that industrialization is the cause, has brought about the machines that are able to replace the labor. Most of the people who live in the rural areas are people who can do manual labor and not the labor that requires skills. So most industrialization has brought about machines that, for example, we can see that there are machines that can pick coffee, and it only needs like 4 people. This is brought about by industrialization, and so it deprives from them the labor that the people from the rural areas can get. Another point is that industrialization also affects the rural people directly. For example, the people who live when they realize that there's a mineral or there's like something that can bring about profit in the rural areas, the people who live in the rural areas are normally displaced. I can give an example of Turkana. They've realized that there is oil there, and so they want to set up industries. Where we ask ourselves where the people who are living there will go, and we also have land issues. And most of the people, as much as they are promised by the government that they'll be sent somewhere else or get a better place, we find that most of them they lose their land, and yet they don't have anywhere else to go. And the same industrialization is the one that brings about the genetically modified, like chicken, maize, and all that. And people from the rural areas grow maize, and since they need their maize to be marketed, to be sold to the people who live in to the people, and yet the industrialization has brought about the genetically modified stuff, we find that they lose their market too. And also industrialization causes rural to urban migration, and this rural to urban migration deprives from the people who live in the rural areas the labor they need in the farm to improve their lives, and also it deprives from them the markets. For most of the people who live in the rural areas, when they move to the urban areas, they leave no market for the people who live in the rural areas. And also the people who live in the rural areas, if they are farmers, most of them sell their products to the industries in the urban areas, and these industries make a lot of profit, while the farmers get a minimal profit. For example, in Mumia's sugar company, they make a profit of 70%, and only 5% is given to the farmers. So I'd like to oppose the motion that states industrialization. Industrialization has bring profit to the rural poor, for it just doesn't bring profit. Thank you.
Opposer number 2, Pauline, take the stage. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Pauline Jao, representing Precious Blood, in opposition to the motion that industrialization in Africa does not benefit the rural poor. We know that taxes is the major source of government revenue. So as you build industries, the government is able to tax these industries. And with these taxes, the government can produce goods to benefit the rural poor, and can be able to develop them by providing social amenities and other amenities such as health and education. In addition to this, it also opens up these regions because transport and communication enables trade. Therefore, these roads are going to be able to transport the produce of the people who live in the rural areas. And because they're going to be able to transport this produce, they're going to be able to uplift their standards of living, because they're going to be able to produce even higher and earn more profit. Thank you.
Having heard the arguments from both sides, I'd like to take questions from the audience. I'm taking 2 questions for each side. Questions to the proposing side. Can I have anyone?
I'm Rebecca Irimo from Loreto Convent Valley Road. I would like to ask the proposers if you think that the electric lines and the telephone lines in rural areas today isn't benefiting the rural poor.
Any other question to the proposing team? One more question.
My name is Mary Akwan. I'm from St. Nicholas Senior School. I would like to ask if, as in like the industrial areas are not like modified, how are we going to achieve the vision 2030 that we're trying to achieve?
My name is Mary Nekesa, representing Nembu Girls High School. I have a question for the opposers. If you think that industrialization benefits the rural poor, do you think that it's the same industrialization that can reduce pollution?
I'm Elizabeth Atieno from STAREHE Girls. I have a question for the opposing side. I want to ask you, how many times have we had people from the rural areas complaining of the roads being bad and their goods being spoiled on the roads before they get to the market? And how many times have we had the government reacting to this?
I'm Lucas from Nairobi Milimani. Wow, what a debate. What the presenters. Keep watching.
Okay, my name is Maureen Deritu, and I'm going to respond to the questions that have been given to the proposing side. The first one was about the electrical lines and the communication lines. Our line of argument is not that industrialization should be banned, is that there is industrialization in Kenya, but it does not favor, or rather it does not benefit the people in the rural areas. And when we talk about the communication lines and the electrical lines, you find that most of the industries, they are set within the vicinity of the urban centers. And in that way, if they are set within those vicinity of the urban centers, the transport and communication lines are mostly going to be in these urban areas. So we are not defying the fact that industrialization should be banned, but it should be able to help the people who are also in the rural areas. And then to my next question, okay, I'm still going to emphasize that we want industrialization to be an important factor, economic factor in Kenya, but we're not saying that industrialization should be banned. Industrialization should be there, but it should be able to help the people in the rural areas. Like for example, when you talk about industries that are set up in urban areas, they're the ones that give job opportunities to the same people who are in the urban areas. And due to that, it causes a rural to urban migration, such that the rural areas, they are left with no manpower to work in maybe the farms or just any economic activity that is available in the rural areas. Then, because I've answered the 2 questions, I'd like to add to the point that my fellow colleagues have just said. Okay, when you talk about industries, there are some industries, we are not defying the fact that there are some industries that are set up in the rural areas, like for example the sugar, the coffee and the tea, but they face a problem of corruption. You find that most of the managing personnel, they don't manage well, such that the farmer is going to get a very low profit compared to the company, and that is going to be to discourage farmers, and in that way it's not going to bring any benefit to the rural people. And then when you talk about industries, most of the industries in Kenya, they are driven by foreign investors because they have the capital. And these foreign investors, you might find that they might come into the country having imported into the country already skilled labor, and that way they're not going to benefit people of Kenya. Thank you.
Proposer number 3. You have 3 minutes to answer your questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cynthia Wawero, representing Precious Blood, Ruta, and I'd like to answer the questions that have been brought forward to me. The first one, I think, believes it was to do with pollution and how industries will introduce pollution. For every action, there's a reaction, and accompanied by the setting up of industries in rural areas, there is what we call legislation, and this legislation should be passed and will be passed effectively so that whatever waste material that industries produce, then they have a way of making it, either recycling it, reusing it, or make it into even a better product than they already have. The second question is infrastructure. That has nothing to do with industrialization. The government has a responsibility to provide infrastructure across the country. Industrialization actually brings infrastructure because with industrialization, there are people. We need roads to transport these goods. We need communication so that we can all access all these goods. So the infrastructure that is there in the rural areas is bad government policy. I do not believe that industrialization has led to this because, for example, in Kericho, their roads are very good compared to the areas around there. Why? Because they have capitalized on the tea farming and they have industries there that support the tea farming. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, to wind up the debate, I'll call on proposer number 1, Audrey. You have 1 minute to give a final statement.
Thank you once again. I would like to say that industrialization is very good and it really helps the economy to go high. But does it benefit everyone in the country? No. Because we find there are those who are affected by pollution. There are those who do not get the product of industrialization. And so what we are trying to say is that industrialization should benefit everyone in the country to ensure there is equality in the whole country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ivy, for the opposers, you have 1 minute.
Okay, so I'm Ivy Kinyanji, and I just want to urge you all, I want you to think critically about the motion. Really, does industrialization not benefit the poor? Is that what we are saying? That's not true. It can't be true. So I urge you all, I need you all to support the opposition of this motion. Thank you.
All right, now let's get to listen to hear from the judges.
I'll begin with Starehe. Good introduction, I also have to agree. Some sense of passion and conviction in whatever thing you said from the first speaker, first proposer that is, I think to the other proposers. One thing I like to say is when we have time on stage, kindly let's maximize the time that we have on stage. We should not be time should not cut us short, but at the same time, we should not be very brief to the extent that we do not preempt our arguments. Maybe lastly, nonverbal cues is very important in communication, and I think Madam has just mentioned the aspect of eye contact, the aspect of facial expression to enhance the message that you are communicating. So to the two schools, I'll just give those brief comments. Otherwise, I wish you the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Good start. I want to clarify that both schools got this topic at the last minute. And therefore, let's give them a big hand for preparing. A good debate, but I think it's such an important topic in Africa today. It could have been far more passionately debated. Nevertheless, considering the circumstances, really impressed with the level of debate. Let me start with the performance by STAREHE Girls Center. Good start with a simple, straightforward definition. Very confident as well as you gave us your points. we had a really good team effort, because what I saw was the first proposer start with a number of points. The second one continued and raised a few others, and the third one came out at the back and really answered the questions very well and went on to raise more points, which was excellent use of the time that you all had. And that was amazing. I think it was a good clarification, Maureen, of the motion at the end when you had some questions and you said, look, we're not saying it should be banned, we're simply saying that it's perhaps the application of industrialization that is the problem. Precious Blood, good effort by you. I think professional presentation in terms of each and every one of you, but I was very disappointed, and Peter Major has alluded to it, that you did not utilize all the time that you had. So each of you came up and made a strong point and then sat down. You must, every second, even to the last second, you must be making as many points as you can, because that's exactly what your opponents did. And also, I just want to address Ivy. It's so important not to assume that the audience knows what you're talking about. So I want to, you said, that's not true, it can't be true, making statements like that, and then not following up with the reasons why it's not true. So every time you make a statement that we know this is not the case, follow it up with the reasons why you know it's not the case. That makes your argument, because maybe the audience is not aware of what you're talking about, and you really need to feed the information. On that note, I hand over to George to go for the audience vote.
All right. How many feel that the proposers had a better argument? How many feel that the opposers had a better argument?
Is STAREHE Girls Center. The judges had given you before the final vote 73%. Impressive. Precious Blood Secondary School, the judges had given you 51%. And therefore, even with the additional 5%, it takes you to 56%, but the winners are STAREHE Girls Center.
Precious Blood for participating. What a debate. Join us next time to find out what the great debaters have to say. You've been watching the Great Debaters Contest. I'm your host, George Kariuki. See you next time.
Each contestant has 3 minutes to make their submissions. The audience also gets a chance to put their questions to each team. Each side will have an additional 1 minute to make a final statement. The judge's decision is final. But in a twist, the audience also gets to have their say through the popular vote. This will see an extra 5% added to the school that wins this vote. The winning school will get an ICT chill-out zone with a widescreen TV, computers, webcam, and internet connection. The teacher from the winning school gets 100,000 shillings courtesy of Chase Bank. The winning students each get a laptop and modem courtesy of Safaricom, a gift hamper from Hako, and a gift hamper from mimi.co.ke. And together they all win the title, The Great Debaters. May the best school win!